You know what separates the traders making millions from those burning through account after account? It's not some secret indicator they found on a random forum. It's not a magical strategy that costs $5,000, and it's definitely not luck. The difference comes down to something much simpler yet infinitely harder to master: mindset. Today, I'm breaking down the exact psychological framework that transforms beginners into trading millionaires. The mental shifts that turn small accounts into life-changing wealth. And why your biggest enemy isn't the market, it's the voice inside your head telling you to do exactly the wrong thing at exactly the wrong time. Here's something that might shock you. Most millionaire traders started exactly where you are right now. Small accounts, big dreams, zero clue what they were doing. But somewhere along their journey, they discovered something profound. Trading isn't really about charts and patterns. It's about rewiring your brain to think like money itself: cold, calculated, patient, unemotional. Let me paint you a picture. Two traders start with identical accounts. Same balance, same strategy, same market conditions. 6 months later, one is consistently profitable and scaling up. The other has blown through 3 accounts and is ready to quit. What happened? The charts didn't change. The strategy didn't change. The only difference was what happened between their ears. The profitable trader learned to think in probabilities, not certainties. They understood that losing trades aren't failures. They're simply the cost of doing business. Meanwhile, the struggling trader took every loss personally. They let emotions hijack their decisions. They traded with their ego instead of their edge. This is where most people get it completely wrong. They think successful trading is about being right more often than you're wrong. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You can be wrong 60% of the time and still make millions. How? Because it's not about being right. It's about being profitable when you are right and limiting damage when you're wrong. The millionaire mindset starts with accepting a fundamental reality. The market doesn't care about your bills. It doesn't care about your hopes. It doesn't care that you need this trade to work out. The market is completely indifferent to your existence, and that indifference is actually your greatest advantage once you learn to work with it instead of against it. Think about this for a second. Every time you place a trade, you're essentially making a bet based on incomplete information. You're saying that based on what you can see right now, price is more likely to move in one direction than another. But here's what separates the winners from the losers. Winners understand they could be wrong, and they're prepared for it. Losers need to be right to feel good about themselves. This need to be right destroys more trading accounts than any technical mistake ever could. Because when you need to be right, you start doing things that make no logical sense. You hold losing trades too long, hoping they'll turn around. You cut winning trades short because you're afraid they might reverse. You chase price movements because you don't want to miss out. All of these behaviors stem from the same root cause: emotional attachment to outcomes. The millionaire trader operates from a completely different framework. They've trained themselves to become emotionally detached from individual trades. Not because they don't care about making money, but because they care more about following their process than about any single result. This detachment isn't natural, it's learned, and it's the most valuable skill you can develop. Here's how this looks in practice. A millionaire trader places a trade and immediately accepts that they might lose the money they're risking. They've already moved on mentally. They're not sitting there watching every tick, praying for the market to validate their analysis. They set their stops, they set their targets, and they walk away. Because they know that obsessing over individual trades is a recipe for poor decision making. But there's something even more important than emotional detachment. It's the ability to think in decades instead of days. Most traders are focused on what happens this week or this month. Millionaire traders are thinking about what happens over the next 10 years. This long-term perspective changes everything about how you approach the markets. When you're thinking long-term, you stop trying to get rich quick. You stop taking excessive risks. You stop jumping from strategy to strategy every time you hit a losing streak. Instead, you focus on building something sustainable, something that can compound over time. The math of compounding is absolutely ruthless when you understand it properly. Small, consistent gains over long periods create results that seem impossible at first glance. But most traders never experience this because they can't resist the temptation to gamble their way to faster results. This is where the millionaire mindset becomes crystal clear. They understand that protecting capital is more important than growing it quickly. They know that surviving in the markets long enough to let compounding work its magic is the real challenge. Not finding the perfect entry or predicting the next big move. Every millionaire trader has a story about the moment they stopped trying to conquer the market and started trying to understand it instead. That moment usually comes after they've blown up their first account, maybe their second, sometimes their third. But instead of quitting, they ask themselves a different question. Instead of asking why the market is wrong, they start asking what they're missing. This shift in perspective is everything, because the moment you stop fighting the market and start flowing with it, you unlock a level of clarity that most traders never experience. You begin to see patterns not just in price action, but in your own behavior. You notice that you trade differently when you're up versus when you're down. You recognize that certain market conditions trigger emotional responses that cloud your judgment. The millionaire trader becomes obsessed with self-awareness. They keep detailed journals not just of their trades, but of their mental state before, during, and after each position. They track their emotions like they track their profit and loss, because they understand that their psychology is their edge. Here's what this looks like in real time. Let's say you're in a winning trade and it starts pulling back against you. The average trader panics. They start second guessing their analysis. They close the position early because they can't handle the discomfort of watching paper profits disappear. The millionaire trader stays calm because they've trained themselves to expect this kind of movement. They know that pullbacks are normal. They've back-tested their strategy enough to know what kind of drawdowns to expect. This brings us to another crucial element of the millionaire mindset: relentless preparation. These traders don't just wing it. They don't just look at a chart and hope for the best. They've done the work. They've tested their approach across different market conditions. They know their win rate, their average winner, their average loser. They understand their system so deeply that they can execute it under pressure without hesitation. But here's where it gets really interesting. The preparation goes beyond just knowing your strategy. Millionaire traders prepare for psychological challenges too. They know that there will be times when their system stops working temporarily. They know there will be losing streaks that test their resolve. They know there will be moments when everyone around them is making money while they're sitting in cash waiting for their setup. This is where most traders crack. They see other people getting rich and they abandon their discipline. They start chasing. They start forcing trades. They start taking setups that don't quite meet their criteria because they don't want to miss out. The millionaire trader sits through all of this noise because they trust their process more than they trust their emotions. Think about this scenario. The market is ripping higher. Everyone on social media is posting screenshots of massive gains. Your friends are telling you about the killing they're making, and you're sitting there with no position because your system hasn't given you a signal yet. The psychological pressure is intense. Your brain is screaming at you to do something, anything, to get in on the action. The millionaire trader does nothing, not because they don't want to make money, but because they know that chasing moves that have already happened is a recipe for disaster. They've learned that missing out on one opportunity doesn't matter if you catch the next 10 properly. This ability to let opportunities pass without feeling regret is perhaps the most difficult skill to master. It requires complete confidence in your approach, and that confidence only comes from one place: proof. You need proof that your system works over time. Not just back testing, but real forward testing with real money on the line. This is why the journey to becoming a millionaire trader takes years, not months. During those years, something profound happens to your relationship with risk. Most people see risk as something to avoid. Millionaire traders see risk as something to manage. They understand that you can't eliminate risk from trading, but you can control it. You can decide how much you're willing to lose before you even enter a position. You can set rules that protect you from your own worst impulses. This risk management becomes second nature. Every trade starts with the same question: how much am I willing to lose if this goes wrong? Not how much can I make if this goes right. The potential profit is secondary to the potential loss, because millionaire traders know that controlling losses is how you stay in the game long enough for the wins to compound. The psychological impact of this approach cannot be overstated. When you know exactly how much you're risking and you're comfortable with that risk, trades become less stressful. You're not checking your phone every 5 minutes. You're not losing sleep over positions. You're operating from a place of calm confidence rather than fear and greed. This calm confidence attracts opportunities. Other traders start noticing your consistency. You develop a reputation for reliability. People want to invest with you or learn from you. What started as personal discipline becomes a magnet for capital and connections that accelerate your growth. But perhaps most importantly, you develop something that can't be taught or bought. You develop judgment, the ability to read between the lines of what the market is telling you. So there you have it. The mindset that separates the millionaires from the masses isn't complicated, but it's not easy either. It's about rewiring your brain to think like a machine instead of a human, to see probabilities instead of possibilities, to value process over profits and discipline over dollars. The transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens trade by trade, loss by loss, lesson by lesson. Every blown account teaches you something. Every winning streak tests your humility. Every moment of doubt forces you to choose between your emotions and your edge. Most traders will read this and nod their heads in agreement. They'll understand every word but change nothing about how they approach the markets. They'll go back to checking their phones obsessively, cutting winners short, and holding losers too long. They'll keep trading with their hearts instead of their heads, but a small percentage will take these concepts and actually implement them. They'll start treating their psychology as seriously as they treat their technical analysis. They'll begin the slow, painful process of becoming someone the market respects instead of someone it punishes. The choice is yours. You can keep doing what you've always done and get what you've always gotten. Or you can start thinking like the traders who've already made it. The ones who understand that the real battle isn't on the charts. It's in the mirror. The market is waiting. Are you ready to think like a millionaire?